just wait until the recording announcement has finished. So this meeting is being recorded. We're only going to record the first part of it where we're talking about the process, and we'll turn off the recording for the Q&A. If you'd like to turn your cameras off while we are recording, that would be great. And then we'll ask you to turn your cameras back on if you're comfortable doing that for the Q&A at the end of the session. So my name is Karen Dick. I'm the Head of Place Partnerships and Communities at Creative Scotland. And we are here today to talk about the Hip Hop Bursary Fund. Here with my partners here today, Steg, Casey and Mobile. We're just going to talk a little bit about the fund. The guys are going to talk about why they are involved in the fund, what they do, and what they think about the fund and their hopes for this fund and how it can support what everyone is doing within hip hop and grime. So I'm going to pass over to Steg, Casey and Mobile because I think it's important that you hear them speaking rather than me. So do we want to start with Steg? Do you want to talk a bit about what you do and how you're involved in this? And then we'll go on to Casey and Mobile.
Thank you very much, Karen. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Really appreciate it. It's a nice day out there. You could be anywhere. So we do appreciate your time. My name's Steg G. I'm a hip hop artist based in Govan in Glasgow. I've been involved in hip hop for over 20 years. I'm involved in music production, rapping. I run my own record label. I run events. I'm also a hip hop educator as well. So I do lots of short freelance courses. I do also more academic based courses as well. I'm project manager for Sunnygovan Community Radio, which I'm in at the moment. Sunnygovan's proud to be partnering up with everyone to be part of this excellent hip hop bursary. I know it's so important because hip hop artists, we don't access funds. We don't try and get a wee horn up. We've been such a DIY culture for years and years. We've just got over backsides and done it. But we all have hurdles, we all have barriers. There is cost implications to pretty much everything involved in making hip hop, whether that's the music, the art form, the graffiti, the dance, or whatever element of it. It does have cost implications. And we are aware that not everyone has maybe got the skill set or the even time to fill in a big application form to say Creative Scotland for the Open Project Fund. So it's dead good that this fund is here. It's in terms and language that we can understand. It's been wrote with hip hop heads in mind so that they can access this without as too much of a barrier in the way. We've done everything we can to reduce the barriers for this form in the hope that people who don't access funds can access this fund. As a pilot, and it is a limited pot as well, but we do hope to potentially expand it in the future if there's a need for it. So I'm definitely keen to encourage you guys all to apply for it. Please spread the word as well. It's a great opportunity, as you all know. That's why he's here today. And thank you very much.
Thanks, Steg. Casey, and just for anyone that wants to use the closed captioning, you can do that in the bottom of your Zoom bar just by clicking the CC button. And I'm going to go to Casey.
Hi guys, how you doing? My name's Casey. I'm a DJ and producer from Glasgow. I run Peach, which is an events platform that focuses around hip hop and rap. And I'm also the co-founder of 644 Studios, which is one of the partners in this fund. 644 is a music recording studio and complex based in Glasgow. Right now we're working with trying to expand the Scottish scene. We work a lot with helping artists develop to get to the next level in their career. We also work with a lot of people outside of Scotland as well to try and create that link for the Scottish scene to the rest of the UK. So we'll talk to brands, organisations, labels, artists, gain some recognition that we definitely deserve here in Scotland. I wanted to be part of this fund because I feel it's really important to try and help get the fund to the right people that are doing really great things within this scene. And of course, help spread the word that these things are actually happening. And this is available to creatives in hip hop, as we said before, a genre that doesn't normally get a lot of backing in Scotland. But thanks to Creative Scotland and the rest of the team, we're able to get something and hopefully push this opportunity to everyone. And I think it's going to create a lot of good things for everyone in this fund. And just like Steg G said, we all know how much it costs to be a creative. And hopefully this can help you, and hopefully we'll have more in the future as well. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Casey. Thanks. Mobile?
Hey, hi everyone, I'm Mobile. I am an artist manager, I guess. My creative practice though explores the intersection of music and culture. And I essentially help artists execute their vision. This ranges from artist development, providing studio spaces, and working on campaigns for brands and producing music videos. I'm currently in UP2STNDRD Studios, where my base is. I'm a partner at UP2STNDRD, which is the go-to hip-hop platform in Scotland for all the new wave artists. I really wanted to be part of this fund because I do think it's an amazing opportunity. And as Steg has said as well, that oftentimes we go down the route of just doing it ourselves, just DIY, rather than accessing the help that is there. I hope through this session, you'll be able to get enough information or get some information on this fund. And I hope that encourages you to apply, which is always the first step. It took me about 4 years to make that first step. Don't be like me. Get an application in and build from there.
That's great. Thanks, Mobile. So what we're going to do just now, we're just going to swiftly move on to talk through the guidelines and the application form, and then we'll open up for questions, or if anyone wants to know anything else, or if there's anything we haven't covered there, we'll be able to pick that up after that. So if you do have any questions that come to you when I'm talking through the form, please pop them in the chat and we'll pick them up at the end. And then we'll also be able to take any questions that you might have then. So I'm just going to share my screen. And hopefully you can all see that. And again, if there are anything that stops working, or if I disappear suddenly, as has happened before, just Lindsay will take care of you until we sort things out. So if there's any issues or anything, just give me a shout. So the Hip Hop Bursary programme, the guidelines and the application form can be found on Sunny G's website. So there's a link at the end of these forms, which I will cover when we get to. So the guidelines for applicants. It's important, I think, to be aware that for this, when we talk about artists, we mean anyone who's involved in creating original work within any of the aspects of hip hop. So that could be anyone that works within visual arts, music, dance, drama, literature, screen, or multi-art forms of any of those types of work. And it's not limited to those. Those are the main art forms that we tend to cover within Creative Scotland. So this fund is open to individuals living in Scotland, and it's intended to support artists who can demonstrate progression and development of their practice, as well as an ongoing commitment to your work. You have to be over 16 to apply, and you can be at any stage of your career. This isn't just for emerging artists or for young people or for established artists, it's for anyone. The main restriction we have around that sort of point there is that you can't be in full-time education. We'll cover that a bit in the exclusions. So an individual artist or creative practitioner can apply. You can also apply as a collaboration or a collective, but one person will have to be the lead applicant on that, unless you do have a bank account or something under a joint name. So organisations can't apply, but collaborations can. So exclusions, we won't fund anything that's started before the date that you will get your decision of the funding. we can't support students in full-time education, but if you are undertaking a part-time study course, you can apply, but the funding that you're applying for can't be to do with the course that you're studying. So we won't support academics or other education professionals who are seeking professional development funding related to their work, which includes work as part of a school curriculum. So for example, a teacher couldn't apply to run a class on hip hop in their class as part of the curriculum. But if that teacher happened to be a hip hop artist and they have a music, you know, their own music on the side or as another career, then they can apply for that. We won't support development of adjustment to a private dwelling. Our funds come from the National Lottery and we can't use them to make changes to your own private dwelling. So if you have a home studio, we couldn't apply, we couldn't support you to develop that, but you could come in for costs for equipment as part of a project. Organisations are not eligible. You can't apply to this fund or other Creative Scotland funds for the same activity. So if you've applied to the Open Fund and been successful through Creative Scotland, if you're applying for the Hip Hop Bursary, that can't be used for the same project as your Open Fund award. Applications that fund the production or documentation of work made solely for sale or commercial purposes are not eligible, but it could be part of a wider application. And we're happy to talk about that and explain that further later on if needed. Sunny G are administering this fund, and there is an email address there if you want to get in touch with them with any questions or to clarify anything. So the amount that you can apply for, it's between £500 and £1,500. We might offer less than requested, depending on how much demand there is on the fund. But we would hope to support the amount that people have asked for. So the deadline for this fund is you can apply at any point between now and the 30th of August at 12 p.m. We won't accept any applications after that. And the panel will meet within the 2 weeks following that deadline, and we will be in touch with all the applicants about the outcome of their application within 4 weeks of the deadline. So if you're applying at the beginning of August, you still won't find out until after the deadline for the full fund. So do take your time to fill in the application forms and consider what you're applying for rather than rushing off immediately. We won't be awarding any money until the end of that process. The payments will be paid out in full within receipt of a funding agreement. There won't be any staged payments, unlike some other Creative Scotland funds. So the criteria for this fund, which is the most important bit, this has been developed in partnership with Sunny G, UP2STNDRD and 644 Studios. And these are the criteria that we would mostly want to support application for. So for artists to sustain their practice following the impact of COVID-19, we know that a lot of people have lost work, have lost income, have lost opportunities to perform or to take part in activities. So the bursary programme will consider projects that will help you to sustain what you're doing until things return to some semblance of normal. We will support small-scale projects to test out ideas and develop new relationships. So if there's someone you want to work with, or two people that want to work together to develop different things or to bring in new ideas or something that you might have wanted to do for a while, that could be fall under that category. Professional development opportunities for people. What we really want to do is support artists and communities that are underrepresented to develop their work within hip hop, and to support artists that don't have previous experience of receiving public funding. This fund is sort of a step up. If you haven't, as Steg and Casey and Mobile said earlier, it can be quite intimidating and quite a difficult process to get your head around the first application for funding when you've not done it before. This is designed to be an easier way to do that, for that first step in that process. the guidelines cover the details here around where to apply to and how attachments need to be saved so that we can manage that process a bit earlier, a bit easier. So we will confirm that we've received your application, and if you do need to talk to us or some support from Sunny Govan, you can get in touch with them. So this is the application form here. We will ask for standard information so that we can process your application. And we will ask you to summarise in up to 100 words the activity you're seeking funding for. The start and end dates, remember, they can't start before you receive your decision. So please make sure that your applications or your projects don't start before the end of September. The amount of funding that you're requesting, and also what the principal focus of your application is. Now, it might be more than one of these things, but if you could highlight what the principal focus of the application and the project is, that will help us when we're looking at what types of work we've funded through this programme and what the demand has been for certain types of activities. Please select which art form your project is. If it's more than 2, do just select multi-arts because that makes it easier for us to manage. If you want to provide us with some previous work within hip hop, you can describe them below. That will help us to understand what you're doing and where you are and what you're applying for. And the specifics of how to attach the documents to the emails and how they need to be described are explained in the guidelines. Further on in this application form, there is a request to describe the activity you're looking for support for. And that is, tell us what you want to do. Tell us how it will help you. Tell us the impact COVID-19 and the restrictions have had on you, and tell us what you want to do within hip hop and how you will bring in audiences and a wider community to that, if that is relevant to your project. So as we've noted above, these are the criteria that we will prioritise. And we're asking you to choose one of those which best meets your project. Again, your project might have more than one. So, but choose the one that best meets it. So if you really think this best meets the criteria for professional development, then explain why your project meets that and how that is how your project is going to meet that criteria. We will ask you to fill in a budget. It's a fairly high level budget. If your project totals more than £1,500, which is the maximum amount you can apply for this bursary for, we will want to see where the other funding is coming from. So if your project is £2,000, please let us know where that, and you're asking for £1,500, please explain where that £500 is coming from so that the income and the expenditure balance. So we'll ask you to put down your expenditure, your activity costs, how much they will be, and also remember that your project can be made up of both cash and in kind. And by in kind, we mean people who are contributing to your work, or you if you're contributing to the project, but are not being paid to do for. So that might paid to do it. So that might be the hire of a room, and someone that you're working with has decided that they're going to contribute the hire of a room or a studio for free. So you can put the cost of that studio cost of what it would have been had you been expected to pay for it into your project as an in-kind cost. And if you want any further support on that, we can talk about that as well. So we'll ask you to ask us how much you're wanting for between £500 and £1,500, any other income, and then the total at the end. If you're looking for guidance on how much you should be paying yourself or anyone else that's involved in your project. We've included a link to the rates of pay for the Scottish Artists Union and the Musicians Union. There are other unions out there who might be able to advise on rates of pay, particularly in literature or in other art forms. But we do support fair pay for artists. We'll ask you to sign it at the end and then list your supporting material to make sure that we receive all of the information that you're sending to us. There's some guidance at the bottom of the application form on the formats that you can supply your supporting material in. And that will be helpful to make sure that we can access the things that you're sending to us. So that is an extremely fast canter through the guidelines and the application forms. I'm going to stop sharing my screen just now so that I can come back and speak to you all. And we will now move on to the Q&A part of the discussion. So we will stop the recording now.